Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Welcome. I welcome you all to this lecture in the course Sandhi in Paninian Grammar. In this lecture, we continue studying the Swadi Sandhi. We have studied what is a Swadi Sandhi. We said that Swadi Sandhi is that Sandhi which substitutes the Swadi suffixes in the specific environment of deriving a pada that is embedded in the derivation of a sentence. Remember, we are talking about the derivation of the entire sentence with all the building elements placed side by side and the rules applying and the simultaneous derivation. So, we have here the sentence template. We have studied this before, but let us review this. So, this particular sentence consists of 3 padas. This is 1 pra plus sup, this is 2nd pra plus sup, and this is 3rd dha plus thing. According to the definition of the sentence, namely ekating vakyam, there has to be one thing for this unit to be called a sentence, and that is why this thing is there. The prakriti of this thing is dhatu. That is why this dhatu is also mentioned here by the initial sound dha. The remaining padas, they are all subantas ending in sup. And the prakriti for the sup is pratipadika, which is mentioned here by the initial sound pra. So, pra plus sup plus pra plus sup plus dhatu plus thing. This is the sentence, and when these elements are placed side by side, the first thing that happens where rules apply are internally and the words get derived, and once these are derived, then these elements, they come into contact with the other padas, and then these contacts or these combinations result in the sandhi, which is what is described here as Swadi Sandhi. So, this is a pratipadika and this is a sup, this is a pratipadika and this is a sup, and this is a dhatu and this is a thing. So, when this pada comes into contact with this pada and this pada comes into contact with this pada, obviously this sound of the pratyaya is coming immediately before this particular initial sound of the next pada, and they are uttered in close proximity. Similar is the case with this particular final sound of the sup pratyaya, and then in place of these sup pratyayas, there is the sandhi that is happening. These sounds get replaced by these other substitutes, and that is the reason why these are called sandhis, these are called swadi sandhis, because they substitute the swadi suffixes. And we have seen swadi includes the 21 suffixes stated in 412 as well as the other suffixes also. So, we have seen this. What is a swadi? Swadi is referring to the suffixes which are termed vibhakti, defined by 14104, where sup and ting both are termed vibhakti. Sup suffixes are 21 suffixes added after a pratipadika or a nominal root stated by 412 in the Ashtadhyayi, and ting suffixes are the 18 suffixes added after a verbal root stated by the Sutra 3478 in the Ashtadhyayi. So, to give you a specific example once again, this is what is a Swadi Sandhi. If you have Ramas plus Gramam plus Nayati, of course Ramas, Gramam and Nayati, these are derived internally by adding the suffix sa to Rama, to Grama and ti to ni, and this internal derivation has happened, and now Ramas and Gramam and Nayati, they come into contact. So this sa comes immediately before this g, and this sa appears at the end of a pada. So this sa gets substituted, and there is a chain of substitution which results in finally us getting this particular form Ramo, Ramo Gramam Gacchati or Nayati. So this O is termed as the result of the Swadi Sandhi. Similarly, Ramena Gramas and Gamyate. So this Sa becoming O, this is what is the result of the Swadi Sandhi. Here are the sutras, and we have studied some of them in the previous lecture, namely Sasajushoruhu, Atorora Plutada Plute and Hashicha. And we also noted an important feature of these sutras, namely that as far as 6.1, 113 and 114 are concerned, they are having an input which is an output of 8266, which is generally prohibited in the Ashtadhyayi. Now in this lecture we shall study the two more important sutras which substitute ya in place of ru, and they are Bhobhago Apurvasya Yoshi and Hali Sarvesham. Let us take up Bhobhago Agho Apurvasya Yoshi 8317. This sutra has got three padas, Bhobhago Agho Apurvasya, Yaha and Ashi. Roho is continued. So Bhobhago Agho Apurvasya is 6/1 of Bhos, Bhagos and Aghos, and Apurva is an adjective. So Apurvasya, where A is Purva. A stands for all 18 varieties of A. The sixth case in Bhobhago Agho Apurvasya means part of. Yaha is 1/1 of ya, which refers to the sound ya, and so this 1/1 refers to the substitute. Ashi is 7/1 of ash. Ash means all vowels plus h plus semi vowels plus class consonants 5, 4 and 3. Ashi means immediately before ash. Roho is 6/1 of ru, which is sound r. So roho means in place of. So here we have roho as the substituent, ya as the substitute, and this ru has to be a part of Bhos, Bhagos and Aghos, and this ru should have a immediately preceding. And the right hand side environment has to be ash. So the meaning of Bhobhago Agho Apurvasya Yoshi is the following. Immediately before ash, in place of ru, which comes immediately after a, and which is also a part of Bhos, Bhagos and Aghos, is substituted by ya. I repeat, immediately before ash, ashi, in place of ru, roho, which comes immediately after a, apurvasya, and which is also a part of bhos, bhagos and aghos. Bho, bhago, agho. This is substituted, this ru is substituted by ya. These are the examples. These are the template examples. So we have bhos plus ash, and this sa first of all becomes ru. So bhoru plus ash, and then this ru is substituted by ya. Since this ru is part of bhos and ash is following immediately, so this ru gets substituted by ya. The derivation process does not end here, as we shall see next. Then we have bhagos plus ash. Sa is substituted by ru by the sutra sasajushoruhu, and we have studied this sutra before. Now this ru gets substituted by ya by the present sutra 8317 bho bhago agho apurvasya yoshi. Similarly, aghos plus ash, sa is substituted by ru by sasajushoruhu 8266, and this ru is substituted by ya by the present sutra 8317 bho bhago agho apurvasya yoshi. Similarly, you have this a coming before sa, so as plus ash, and sa is substituted by ru. Now this ru is such that it is preceded immediately by a. So this is apurva ru followed by ash. So this ru by this particular sutra is substituted by ya, and so we get I plus ash as the output generated by this particular sutra. Similarly, because there is the mention of apurva, this as we said before is all 18 varieties. So let us look at the dirgha variety of namely a. So we have as plus ash, and this sa is substituted by ru. So we have aru plus ash. Now this ru is such that it is preceded immediately by a, long variety of a. So this ru now is substituted by ya by the present sutra bho bhago agho apurvasya yoshi. Now once we reach this particular stage where the output is generated, then the other sutras apply. The first of all, this sutra lopash-shakalyasya applies. Let us study what this sutra has to say. This sutra has got two padas, lopaha and shakalyasya. Lopaha is 1/1 of lopa, that is deletion. This is stated as a substitute. Shakalyasya means in view of the grammarian shakalya. Words continued are apurvasya, whose previous sound is a, jvoho 6/2 of jva in place of ya and va, and ashi 7/1 of ash, thereby meaning immediately before ash. So now here we have ya and va stated as the substituents, lopa or the deletion or the zero substitute stated as the substitute, in the environment of a preceding and ash following. This in view of shakalya and therefore the option. So the sutra means immediately before ash, in place of ya and va, which come immediately after a, substitute zero or deletion in the view of the grammarian shakalya. So let us look at the meaning of the sutra lopash-shakalyasya. It means immediately before ash, in place of ya and va, which come immediately after a, substitute zero or deletion in the view of the grammarian shakalya. So here we have a plus ya or va, and this ya or va comes at the end of the pada, followed by ash, and then in place of this ya or va, substitute zero optionally. So this a plus ya or va plus ash, this is the input, and 8319 applies and returns a plus 0 plus ash as the optional output. The other output would be this, but Lopashakalyasya says this could be the other output. So the meaning of the sutra once again is immediately before ash, in place of ya and va, which come immediately after a and which are also at the end of the pada, substitute zero deletion in the view of the grammarian Shakalya. Then there is one more sutra which applies in this particular environment, which is Hali Sarvesham. Hali Sarvesham. Now Hali Sarvesham is 8322. This has got two padas, Hali and Sarvesham. Hali is 7/1 of Hal, which means immediately before a consonant. Sarvesham is 6/3 of Sarva, which means in view of all. The words continued are Bho Bhago Agho Apurvasya, which is 6/1 of Bho Bhago Apurva, and this sixth case means part of. Yaha is 6/1 of ya, sound ya, this means in place of, and Lopaha, that is 1/1 of Lopa or deletion, and this is stated as the substitute. So the sutra means in view of all grammarians, in place of ya, which comes immediately after a and which is part of bhos, bhagos, aghos, substitute 0. I repeat, in view of all grammarians, in place of ya, which comes immediately after a and which is part of bhos, bhagos and aghos, substitute 0. So this can be put in the form of an equation like this: Bho, Bhago, Agho or a plus ya plus hal. In this case, we refer to only hash because that is part of the pratyahara ash as well, which is the condition for the ya substitute to occur in the first place. So now when we have bho slash bhago slash agho slash a plus ya plus hal, and the output generated by this particular sutra in such a condition is bho slash bhago slash agho slash a plus 0 plus hal, that is hash. So this is the template example. If you have bho slash bhago slash agho slash a plus ya plus ach. If this is the case, then you have bho slash bhago slash agho slash a plus 0, that is deletion, plus ach. This is the optional derivation, Lopashakalyasya. And if you have bho slash bhago plus agho plus a slash a plus ya plus hal, then bho slash bhago slash agho slash a plus 0 plus hal. This is the generated output by the sutra Hali Sarvesham. This is the end result of the meaning of these sutras, namely Lopashakalyasya and Hali Sarvesham, which operate on the output generated by the sutra Bho Bhago Agho Apurvasya Yoshi. Remember, the input for Bho Bhago Agho Apurvasya Yoshi is Ru, and the output for the same sutra is Ya. This Ya becomes the input for Lopashakalyasya and also Hali Sarvesham. So, as far as Lopashakalyasya is concerned, Ashi is continued and there is optional deletion of Ya. And then as far as Hali Sarvesham is concerned, in front of Hal, the deletion is obligatory, accepted by all. So therefore, the end result of application of both these sutras, which state the substitution for year, is this. If there is bho slash bhago slash agho slash a plus year plus ach, then year gets optionally deleted. But if you have bho slash bhago plus agho plus a slash a plus year plus hal, then this year is permanently deleted. Let us look at the example. In this lecture hereafter, let us look at the first examples of the output that is generated, which is stated on the left hand side of the slide, and we shall focus on the output generated by Hali Sarvesham stated on the right hand side of this particular slide in the next lecture. So let us study this first. If you have as plus ach and then sa coming at the end of the pada, so sa gets substituted by ru. So aru plus ach is the output. This aru plus ach is the input for bho bhago agho apurvasya yoshi, and so I plus ach is the output. This output I plus ach becomes the input for lopashakalya and also Hali Sarvesham. So lopashakalya first of all applies over here, and then we have the deletion of year optionally. This is the further processing that happens on I in the environment of ach immediately following. Let us study some template examples first, and then we shall take up the specific examples. So we have as plus a as the first case, and then this sa will be substituted by ru. So we have aru plus a. Now in this case we have already studied the sutra ato rora plutada plute would apply, and then substitute this ru by u. So you have a u plus a, and then this a and u, they would become o by the guna sandhi. So you have o plus a as the next derivation, and then this o plus a, since o comes at the end of the pada, we will have another sutra applying and substituting both these o and a by the purva rupa, namely o. So at that therefore o will be the resultant output. And so this is not the output generated by lopashakalya. There is no scope, and that is why this is put in different colors. Let us now go ahead. If you have as followed by a, then this becomes ru obviously by the sutra sasajusho ruhu. Then this ru gets substituted by ya by the sutra bhovagho apurvasya yoshi. So you have aya plus a, and then optionally this year gets deleted and you have a plus a. Then you have as plus e as the input, and then sa is substituted by ru, aru plus e. Now this becomes input for bho agho apurvasya yoshi. So you have aya plus e as the output. Then this becomes the input for lopashakalya, which then deletes this year optionally. So you have a plus e as the optional output generated by the application of lopashakalya. 8319. Then we have as plus u, and then aru plus u, then aya plus u, and finally optionally a plus u. Similarly as plus ru, and we have aru plus ru as the next step, substituted by I plus ru and optionally the deletion of year. So we have a plus ru. Then we have as plus lu. Next step is aru plus lu, then aya plus lu, and finally optionally a plus lu, where year gets deleted optionally. Similarly as plus a, and we have aru plus a, then we have aya plus a, bho bhago agho, and then this year gets optionally deleted, so we have a plus a optionally derived. Then we have us plus o, and then we have aru plus o, then this ru becomes year, aya plus o, and then finally this year gets optionally dropped, so we have a plus o. Similarly, us plus I, and we have aru plus I, then ru gets substituted by year, and so year gets optionally deleted by lopas shakalyasya, and we get a plus I as the optionally derived form. Then we have us plus au, then aru plus au, then aya plus au, and here gets optionally deleted, so we get a plus au. These are the template examples. And then we have us plus hush, and sir is substituted by ru, aru plus hush, and then we have ru substituted by u by the sutra hashicha, and so we have a u plus hush, and a u get the substitution o by adgunaha, so you have o plus hush as the final derived form. And this is the example of this particular case. We have Shivas plus Hasati, where sa comes at the end of the pada followed by her, so sa is substituted by ru, and ru is substituted by u by the sutra hashicha, and then this a in Shiva over here and u, then they get substituted by o, so we have Shivo plus Hasati. This is the output generated by the application of these sutras. Now let us look at the examples of us plus ach being the input and sa becoming ru, so devas plus aha, and then sa becoming ru by sasajushoruhu, ru becoming ya by bho bhago agho apurvasya yoshi, and then finally this year getting deleted by this particular sutra lopas shakalyasya. So we have deva aha optionally as the output. Similarly, devas plus iti, and sa becomes ru, ru becomes ya, and then this year is optionally deleted, so we have deva iti as an optionally derived form. Similarly, devas plus uta, and sa becomes ru, ru becomes ya becomes 0 optionally, and so we have deva plus uta as the optionally derived form. Then we have devas plus rishihi, so devaru plus rishihi, then devai plus rishihi, then this year gets optionally deleted, so we have deva plus rishihi. Then we have devas plus lukaraha, and the finally derived form is deva lukaraha optionally after having deleted this year optionally. Similarly, devas plus ekaha, sa is substituted first by ru, then by ya, and then finally it is deleted optionally, and so we get deva ekaha. Then we have devas plus om, sa becoming ru, ru becoming ya, and this year gets deleted optionally, so we have deva plus om. Similarly, devas plus aidhata, and the finally derived form is deva plus aidhata. This is optionally derived. Then we have devas plus aushadham, and finally we get deva plus aushadham, optionally derived. Then we have bhos plus achyuta, where sa is substituted by ru, then by ya, and then finally ya gets deleted, so we have bho achyuta. Similarly, bhago achyuta and agho achyuta are the forms that are also derived. The next question is, when we have deva plus aha as the final output, why there is no further sandhi? Like for example, in deva plus aha, we can do the savarna dirgha sandhi by 61101 by substituting this a and this a by the savarna dirgha of a, namely a. So we can have devaha. Similarly, deva plus iti, this is the output. We can apply guna sandhi. We can apply the sutra ad gunaha 6187 and do the guna sandhi and get the form deveti. Similarly, deva ekaha, this is the scope for the vruddhi sandhi 6188 and the resultant output would be devaikaha. Similarly, deva plus aushadham, once again vruddhi sandhi and the output would be devaushadham. Why this further sandhi does not happen? So these forms, these sandhis are not explained in Paninian grammar. The Paninian grammatical tradition interprets this as the fact that these forms are not allowed by the Paninian grammatical tradition. They are not grammatical. So why no further sandhi in these cases? The answer is very simple. The answer is that because users didn't use it. But then how does the grammar explain this particular fact? The grammar explains by arranging the sutras in such a way where the output of certain sutras is said to be not to become the input for the other sutras, asiddha section. The output of the sutra in the asiddha section does not become the input for any previous sutra. This is what asiddha section stands for. And here we see that the output of 8319, namely 0 in place of year, does not become the input for 6187 and 88. To summarize, we studied more substitutes in place of ru, which was stated as a substitute of sa at the end of a pada. These two substitutes are ya and 0. Several occurrences like Dhritarashtra Uvacha, Sanjaya Uvacha can be explained using the sutras that we studied so far in the Swadi Sandhi. Due to the principle of the asiddha using which the sutras are arranged in the grammar, absence of sandhi is not explained by the grammarian. Next, we study the remaining examples and other cases related to this particular Swadi Sandhi. This we shall do in the next lecture. Thank you very much for your attention.